Hello everyone, this is Dave at Pasquale Aviation. I wanted to talk today about the airspeed switch or auto Axion system in the Blanca Viking. It seems to be kind of a nuisance system to a lot of pilots. There's a couple reasons for that. The primary, which concerns maintenance personnel like me mostly, is that the system is not adjusted correctly. This particular airplane I'm in had the system bypassed. So what that'll lead to is you could put the gear in the up position and land the airplane gear up without the system preventing that. The way it's designed is you need a couple of things in order to be able to retract the gear, and a certain thing will happen if the in order to deploy the gear automatically. So what you need to retract the gear is you need to have the throttle at or near full throttle, or you need to have airspeed above 110 to 115 miles an hour if the system is adjusted correctly. Either one of those will allow you to retract the gear and it'll stay up. Now, if you are flying along at greater than 115 miles an hour and you pull the throttle back and you allow the airspeed to drop, the gear should deploy between 95 and 105 miles an hour, depending on how the system is set up. In the case of this one, when I found it, the airspeed switch was bypassed, which would allow the gear to retract no matter what, and would not deploy the gear at all. When I connected the system back up, I found that the airspeed was set. It was retracting the gear at like 110 miles an hour and is extending the gear at like 109 miles an hour. It's very close together. So I'm going to show the system, and we'll talk about how to adjust it. The first thing I have set up, the airplane is on jacks, and I have a hose connected to the pitot head, and that hose runs into the cockpit here, so I can apply air pressure to the pitot head and watch the airspeed indicator to see how the system is adjusted. So now I'm going to show the test of the throttle switch. The way that you test that is you set the throttle less than full, and then you select up. And when you select up, you see the red unsafe light came on because the gear handle is in the unsafe position. The gear has not started to retract because we don't have airspeed. You see up here we're at 0 airspeed. So, and the throttle switch is not made. So the way you check this, to check the throttle position, is you slowly work the throttle in with it in this configuration. And as I get close, you can even turn it if it has a vernier control. This one here is a little short, so you see I'm almost at the panel. If I give it a little nudge, it goes up, and you hear the pump started running and the gear's retracting. And let's see if I can show. So you see how close it is to the panel here. That's the cushion, so that's as far in as the throttle will go. Now the gear is fully retracted, and you'll see as I pull it back, it should be, from where it's at here, it should be 1/8 to 1/4 inch away. So an 1/8 inch would be about here, and a 1/4 would be about there, away from the full throttle. So it should be, you see right there, it's probably a little tight. And if you pull it all the way back, you get the horn sounding as the gear comes out. And you notice how the horn was flashing. That's done through on most of the airplanes, there's a vacuum tube with a timer in it. It's like a flasher circuit, almost like the turn signals in a car. And what they do is they have it flash like that to differentiate it from the stall warning, so you know that it's a different indication going on. That switch should happen back about maybe 1/4 inch or so from idle. That switch should actuate the horn. In the case of this one, the full throttle switch is going basically at full throttle, and it should be probably about here. So if you see, that's about where it should be, and then you give it that last little bit. That's how much movement there should be for the full power switch. So I may try to adjust that switch here in a little bit. But next thing, let's talk about the airspeed while I'm in here. So there's the airspeed indicator, and I'll show you, here's the hose I have. This hose runs out. You can see it going out there to the wing. It's connected to the airspeed switch, or not the airspeed switch, the pitot head. And so you see here, I'll stop talking because I'll be blowing in the pitot tube, but as I blow into it, you'll be able to hear or see the airspeed come up, and then eventually you'll hear a click. The click is the airspeed switch. So here we go. So you hear there's two clicks happening there. Let me try to find a better, more steady position here. I'm a little shaky today. And maybe I can zoom in a little bit. So there's two clicks happening there. One is for the retraction side of the system, and the other is for the extension. The switch has what they call hysteresis. So it doesn't quite go up, you know, extend the gear and retract the gear at the same airspeed. And you'll see that the retraction is higher than the extension. So here, I'll do it again. And it's affected by the rate at which you increase or decrease the airspeed. If you increase and decrease it quicker, the points tend to be closer together. So I'll try it again here and see if I can do it slow so we get a more accurate reading. And I'll go through a couple times. I'll go back and forth through it so you can see what I'm doing. So here we go. So you can see the switch is actuating or retracting the gear at around 112 miles an hour, and it's extending the gear around probably 95, 96 miles an hour. So I'll show the switch next. I switched airplanes because this airplane over here has the auto Axion disable system in it. This was installed by a service kit from the factory. And it basically, it bypasses the throttle switch, but it also adds a light to let you know that you are in the disabled mode. So I'm going to flip the camera around and show the instrument panel here. So this is the instrument panel. I have the gear retracted right now. The throttle's all the way in. The tape on the knob here is because I was making adjustments to the switches, and I wanted to be able to move the throttle from out at the engine. But over here is the yellow auto Axion disabled light. And then on the co-pilot side, if I pan over here, is the switch. So you can see right now it's in the off position. I'll flip the switch to the on position and pan back over. And now you see we have the auto Axion disabled light is lit. And then now if I pull the throttle back, which I did there, you can see the gear does not come out. And then if I continue to pull the throttle back, you can see I get the horn blowing. Like I was showing in the other segment of this video, I didn't mention there that this horn is technically set up by manifold pressure, and it requires a flight test in order to do that. I don't have the number committed to memory, but I think it's like 15 inches of manifold pressure or something like that. When that part of the system gets set up, the pilot's going to have to fly the airplane and then mark the vernier, or at least take a measurement from the knob to the panel or something like that, so that when the airplane's on the ground, you know where to set that that switch. And you can see this one here, if I pull it back, is about 1/4 of an inch away from the panel, or away from the idle stop rather, is how this one is set up. But here I'm gonna go and flip the auto Axion disabled off, and with the throttle in the position it's in, the gear should come out. So there you can see with the auto Axion disabled switch out, the gear is now extending. And there the gear is completely extended. I have 3 green. I still have a red light because the landing gear handle is in the up position. So if I switch it to the down position, you see the light goes out. If I go back to the up position and then push the throttle in, you can see just like on the other one, as I get close to the panel, there the gear starts up. I'm on the throttle switch. And see the gears all the way up. So that's this part of the video. This up here is this circular device up here is the airspeed switch. It's connected to the pitot line. And it's also, if you've ever taken a washing machine apart, it'll look familiar to you. This is a washing machine water level switch that you find in there, very similar to it. This one's adjustable, where most of the ones in the washing machines are not. But as you see, there's this screw here and this screw here. So the way this works is this screw in here in the center on this tower will raise and lower the airspeed range. So if you need to increase it or decrease it, that's the one you're going to adjust. And then this screw out here on the edge is going to make the range wider or narrower. So if you turn this outer screw in, it's going to actuate at a greater distance. So if I were to turn it in now, it would actuate at a higher airspeed on the retraction side and a lower airspeed on the extension side. And if I turned it out, it would get less. This one here, if I screwed it in, it will increase the airspeed overall, so it would take both ends of the range up or down if I screwed it out. So that's the airspeed switch. You can see it's got basically 2 wires coming to it, and that's it. I'll show the throttle switch next. So this here is on the back of the throttle body below the air box. The air box is up there. This is the throttle arm right here. There's a cam on the throttle arm that either hits the tab on the bottom switch or the upper switch here. This right here is the throttle switch. This is the one that allows you to bring the gear up. When the throttle arm comes up here and it hits this tab, that's what allows you to retract the gear. I want to move this switch down a little bit so that it actuates a little sooner. So that's it for the adjustment of the auto Axion system. On quite a few airplanes, I've installed a pullable type circuit breaker for the landing gear, which is also helpful when you're doing some of this testing. So you could retract the gear, pull the circuit breaker on the landing gear motor, and then pull the throttle back and listen for the horn to go. If the horn's not working, you can leave it in that condition and do some troubleshooting to figure out why it's not working without having to worry about the gear coming out. So, you know, if you don't have a pullable circuit breaker, that might be a place to add one. I don't know if I can show that to you where it would go. Basically, you're looking down here, the stock circuit breakers are these type here, like this. Gear motors right here. And you see these are not the pullable type. You can't pull them out to shut them off like you can these over here, like this 5 amp alternator field and 70 amp. You can grab onto them and pop them out like that to shut the circuit off. It's a little funky to install a circuit breaker that's a pullable type on the bus bar that's here, because the bus bar uses blade connectors and most of the pullable type circuit breakers use screw terminal type connectors. So if that's something that you're going to do or you want to do, you have to put a little jumper wire in to make that happen. But anyway, it's still a worthwhile thing to do. It takes a couple hours to do that. But back to the original point of the video. This video, I made it because I see this a lot where the auto Axion system has been disabled. It's required to be functional, and it's also there, you know, to keep you from landing gear up accidentally. And I know a lot of people say to me, oh yeah, well, you know, I go through checklists and all that stuff, and that's true, that you do have checklists, and I'm sure almost everybody out there uses them, but yet still some people occasionally land gear up. I know of several past clients over the years that have had, you know, auto Axion systems, and they've landed the airplane with the gear up, and it certainly would have been preventable had the auto Axion system worked correctly. And I can bet that the conversation with your insurance carrier is probably going to be rather difficult if you go to them and tell them you landed gear up and they find out that the auto Axion system was disabled illegally. So anyhow, I hope that helps inform you guys on how to adjust the system. And if the system is adjusted correctly, it functions pretty well without any interference to your normal flight. It's non-intrusive as long as it's adjusted correctly. So thanks for watching.